Exodus, Gods and Kings. Exodus is a retelling of the Bible story. I'm saying that like it's a piece of fiction. It's historical divine word. Where, you know, the Pharaoh and the Egyptians are treating the Hebrews like crap and they're slaves. So they're like, alright, so they get Moses and like, let's get out of here. This place sucks. This one's directed by Ridley Scott, and I was very, very excited for this movie. Ridley Scott made stuff like Gladiator, Kingdom of Heaven, Alien, Prometheus. I like Prometheus. And then he also made stuff like The Counselor and Blade Runner. Sorry, it was boring. Ridley Scott, like Clint Eastwood, is 50-50 with movies these days. Sometimes they're great and they're awesome, and sometimes they're just boring. This is not one of the good ones. Exodus is 2.5 hours long. I kept seeing all these special features and extras and trailers about how this movie was gonna be like so huge in scope and so big, and I didn't see any of that here. I'm like, yeah, there's some cool shots, but what's the big deal? I mean, like, it looks like Egypt. I mean, Egypt is not that good looking of a place. A lot of the sets are really uninspiring and sandy stone, standard Egyptian stuff. And the costumes, too. The costumes look ridiculous. Like, people are mad that they're all a bunch of white actors. I really don't care about that. But I care that they look like white actors dressed up to look like Egyptians. I mean, like, their outfits look ridiculous. I don't even care if they're period accurate. They look so funny. I couldn't stop laughing at John Turturro with his eyes painted up like this and this giant headpiece, and like, I mean, in terms of Bible interpretation, it doesn't really stray from it. It's nothing like Noah. Like, and you know what? Noah was a better film though. This is like, it's not like you can't create a movie that's fiction based off non-fiction. Happens all the time. As a whole, this movie is just not good. There isn't a lot of bad in the movie. There's just hardly anything good that's worth seeing. It's a feature-length film version of the trailer. And all the cool stuff was in the trailer. Watch the trailer, that's the whole movie. How did people do? Christian Bale is Moses. I love Christian Bale. He's probably like my favorite actor, tied with DiCaprio and Andy Serkis. And he's alright, he's fine. I mean, there's nothing inspiring about his performance. God's actually a child in this movie, which was an interesting thing. Like, that didn't bother me. I'm like, oh, I was kind of disappointed because I wanted to see, like, James Earl Jones, like, booming sky voice, like, yelling at Moses. But it was a little kid, and I'm like, that's an interesting take, like God as a child. Joel Edgerton as Ramses. I mean, his acting is okay, I guess, but there's nothing, again, it's really uninspired. He's just some jaded Egyptian guy who wants to be this god. He and Moses were supposed to be like brothers at the beginning of the movie, and you didn't really see that. It's like, they don't seem like they care all that much about each other. They're not like, man, I love you. Yeah. And the music. Why does every Egyptian movie have the same cliche racist Egyptian music? Like, you could say like, oh, you're in the time period, you know, that's the kind of music they had in the time period. Do we play the Star-Spangled Banner every time a movie takes place in America? Are you seeing like modern day pop as the score? That's just dumb. Did any love go into this movie? So then the plagues come, and I was like, these are gonna be cool, and nice top-notch CGI, and I'm like, yeah, they look like real animals again, I guess, but the camera work just does not, and the accompanying score does not at all inspire awe, like, oh my gosh, look at all this stuff that's coming. Like, there was a giant, like, tornado cloud thing, and it looked awesome, and then lightning came down, but there was, like, no music during that part. I mean, where's my... I should be basking in the glory of that shot, and I'm not. The thing about the plagues is that there's a guy in Ramses' keep, and he's, like, explaining all the plagues away with signs. That could be them because, like, they don't want to believe in this god. They have, like, you know, it's science. But then they have their own gods of their own. And then after that big thing, they go out in the river with a pitcher of blood, and then they sing to it, and then they pour it back in and expect it to become water again. It's like, what is the point of that? That's so conflicting. I just don't have a lot to talk about. You think in a 2.5-hour movie, it's like, I'm already getting bored doing the review. In the parting of the Red Sea, this was supposed to be the big, like, we're gonna build up to this to be this great visual effect, this great moment, this presenting the glory of God thing. How the Red Sea parting happens is like the current gets really, really, really shallow, and then it all like pulls away, and then it comes back in a wave later. I'm like, all right, that's not nearly as cool as like a splitting of the sea, and that's something else that doesn't make sense. Like, why would God do that? God's purpose here is to show the glory of God. That could also be explained away with science. Like, say an earthquake happened over here and it pulled the water in before a tidal wave came over. Like, that happens all the time. That's not unnatural, especially with how shallow the Red Sea was at that point. But like, I expect, look at this. Exodus 14:16, and you lift up your staff, and with hand outstretched over the sea, split the sea in two, that the Israelites may pass through it onto dry land. Split the sea in half. Like, I was so ready for it to... It's completely underwhelming. This movie is just 2.5 hours of build-up with no payoff at all. And there is an illusion at the end. Like, this many people, I'm concerned that will start to split, like, to the 12 tribes of Israel and how they break up at the, like, this is gonna happen eventually, so we're gonna need these laws when I'm gone. And Moses, like, carving the tablets, and God's making him tea. Christian Bale should have been a great Moses, and he just wasn't. Ridley Scott should have made an awesome Exodus movie, and he just didn't. This movie isn't, like, terrible, it's just not that good. There's nothing really in it at all. I can thank the movie because it gives me something to put on my channel that isn't an 8 or a 9 or a 10 for once. If someone asked me, should I see Exodus, I would say no. This movie's like a 5 out of 10. That's in the negative range. Like, there's nothing here. What a letdown. Like and subscribe. Watch some of my other... I don't know why I'm pointing here. There isn't going to be anything here. Are you kidding me? I make these on Windows Movie Maker. Yeah. See you guys later.